Hello again, and thank you for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. On the first graphic here, the hazardous weather map, we've got still a wind advisory out, or is due to come back in to effect. Winds have died down there this afternoon. The original one ended, but it's coming back up again, and will be out through 6 p.m. tomorrow. Winds expected to increase tonight, later on, and gusts as high as 60 miles an hour through the passes again till about 6 p.m. tomorrow. And moving on to the fire danger chart, not a lot's really getting the squeeze put on it over here in the Tanana Valley with the band of moisture that moved through, brought as much as 0.4 of an inch of rain here to the mountainous areas north of Fairbanks there, but still some spotty areas of high fire danger, a little more extensive area of high fire danger out there over the Yukon Delta, right on out to the coast and up to the southern coast of Norton Sound. Actually, even some extreme in there, very small areas though. But that's about it as far as fire danger goes for the state. And moving on to satellite imagery, here's the clouds in the front pushing into the Panhandle and up into the interior. That brought all the rain across southern Alaska and the south central Alaska Kenai Peninsula and the North Gulf Coast, where Cordova picked about 1 3/4 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to over an inch fell across much of the Kenai Peninsula, right on up into the Anchorage area. And Susitna Valley, Talkeetna picking about an inch of rain, as well as areas up the Matanuska Valley as well. So pretty wet system here that came through with Nikolai even picking up an inch of rain, and the rainfall lightened up as you head toward the southwest coast, but Bethel still had 2/3 of an inch of precipitation. Now we've got northerly winds blowing here on the back side of that. The stronger winds have diminished from yesterday, gusting as high as, north winds, 35 miles an hour at Gamble through the Bering Strait there, 35 at Tin City, Gamble, and as high as 42 miles an hour at Cape Romanzoff, again from the north. And some rain and fog right on the edge there at Perloff's, right on the edge of it. Unalaska catching that this afternoon as well. Rain started up again this afternoon in Kodiak, light rain, but ending along the North Gulf Coast, tapering off to maybe some scattered showers here with that front pushing inland. Rain slid on into the northern Panhandle with cloudy skies on down to the south. Extreme south areas, though, had enough sunshine where temperatures rose into the lower 70s at Klawak, 72, also over at Stewart. And the eastern interior and the downsloping winds there, Tok pushed up 70, 71. Northway had 72 degrees. And cooler back to the west here at the northwest, even though there was some sunshine there, with the front pushing eastward here. Again, really weakening, still a pretty good area of rain, moderate rain this afternoon at Yakutat, but light rain pushing into the northern Panhandle here as it moves through that ridge. Low pressure developing up over the interior, and again a band of rain with that, as I mentioned, brought almost soaking rains to portions of the White Mountains here and extending back all the way down to the southwest coast. Quite an extensive area of light rain, fog, and drizzle again, just catching the Perloffs there down to the Alaska Peninsula, and then gusty north winds here farther to the north, southwest coast to the Bering Strait. Also low clouds and fog, St. Lawrence Island through the strait. There was some IFR. Flurries, light flurries, and fog there in the Arctic coast. Winds pretty light up in that area. Isolated showers here, or actually some showers and fog around Adak with fog on out to Shemya. For tonight, that low doesn't really move too fast. Continues to weaken about 992 millibars. Still have a pretty good trough here extending north and northeast from the center into the central interior, and that'll keep a band of precipitation going. Pretty widespread here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, narrowing out as it approaches that low up over the northeast interior. So Tanana Valley could see some clearing tonight. Showers along the Alaska Range. Another surge of moisture will bring some light rain up to the North Gulf Coast there, but that front just dissipates and moves through, leaving a little bit of moisture behind there. Warm front has moisture spreading northeastward here, which tomorrow actually pulls back to the west a little bit, actually developing into another system here. And so that's pulling back to the west, high pressure trying to build northward. That's going to keep some moisture. Showers will still be over the northern panhandle, drying out down to the south again, and this area of moisture sliding back to the northwest for some rain into the Kobuk and Selawik Valley areas out on to Kotzebue, Mulatto Hills, showers up along the Brooks Range, and this low now at 996 millibars, actually kind of splitting here, center trying to develop south of the Aleutians, this one drifting up to just east of the Pribilofs there. Northerly winds 15 to maybe 30 miles an hour in a narrow band here coming down over the central Aleutians, roughly from, probably Atka on the stronger winds over to Nikolsky. Lighter winds back to the west, lots of low clouds and fog over the Bering Sea with shower activity mostly from Atka over to the Alaska Peninsula and then northward in across the southwest interior. North Slope could see some clearing tomorrow with low clouds, fog along the coast there, but dry conditions, not even any flurries. Showery, unsettled here, south central Alaska. And then for the day on Monday, that warm front actually develops into another system that pulls northward here. Another pretty good shot of rain and maybe some winds come up to the North Gulf Coast. Moderate to heavy rain again, likely actually for the southern Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area. Pushing in toward Yakutat, otherwise the panhandle mostly dry, partly, maybe mostly sunny there. And temperature 60s, lower 70s. Showers trying to work into the Tanana Valley. Widespread area of light rain here over the southwest with cloudy skies from actually southern Norton Sound all the way down across Bristol Bay into Kodiak Island. This low will keep it showery and unsettled over the Alaska Peninsula. And another trough will bring some shower chances to the Pribilofs, but conditions dry out to the west there under weak high pressure. Not much change for the North Slope. And for lows tonight up there, upper 20s to lower 30s down to the Brooks Range, south of the mountains, mid to upper 40s over the interior, and 40s to near 50 here, south central Alaska, lower 40s southwest coast, upper 30s St. Lawrence Island, lower 40s out over the Aleutians, upper 40s Kodiak, and mostly in the lower 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow back up 68 to 72 over the southern southeast coast, lower 60s to the north, and upper 60s to lower 70s again here, central eastern interior, all the way up to the upper Yukon Valley, cooling off into the mid to upper 50s here to the southwest. And you can see up here to the north, mid to upper, or 35 to 40 for the highs there for the North Slope tomorrow. And then for the lows, right around 30 for the lows up there, 45 to 50 central interior and the North Gulf Coast, or upper 40s the North Gulf Coast, lower 50s for the Panhandle. And the highs for Monday afternoon, looking pretty good here. A little more sunshine, so now even the northern areas 65 to 70-ish, and then down to the south here, 70, 75 or 6. Mid to upper 50s North Gulf Coast, mid 60s possible to sit in the Matanuska Valley, and near 70 here in the central interior, and probably into the mid 70s over the eastern areas.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First aviation graphic here showing IFR, southern slopes of mostly the central Brooks Range, and then out along the Arctic coast. VFR here, Koyukuk Valley, across the Kobuk out to Selawik, Kotzebue, all the northwest coast here, Seward Peninsula looking good. Some marginal VFR, again low clouds streaming southward there from the strait into St. Lawrence Island. IFR here down into the central Aleutians, another band along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula on up to the Aleutian Range, and also the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range right on up toward windy, maybe as far east as Isabel Pass, and then the Kilburg-Auckland Mountains. Prince William Sound, Gulf of Alaska, much of the Panhandle looks IFR. That'll improve a little bit here, going VFR down south there with marginal in the central areas, staying IFR up to the north and along the coast, all of the Gulf of Alaska. North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound to east side of Kodiak, IFR. Marginal VFR Cook Inlet, and the western Cook Inlet is marginal also all the way up to the southern Alaska Range, southern slopes of the Alaska Range. And then some isolated thunderstorms developing up here along the Yukon River Valley area. And also some marginal VFR for the Brooks Range. IFR now central western Arctic coast. IFR here south central Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And for Monday morning, that shifts eastward a little bit and expands here. So Fox Islands over to Cold Bay, King Cove in the IFR, back to Atka, up to the Pribilofs, hanging in over the southwest mountains here. IFR again, the narrow band possible here on that upslope area of the Alaska Range. Otherwise, pretty good VFR, central interior to the Bering Strait. Some marginal stuff hanging on the south side of the Brooks Range. And the swath of IFR there from Barrow on down to Point Lay. Southeast coast, IFR right along the coasting, IFR over the northern areas there. That'll improve, though, for the afternoon. Becoming VFR, most of the inland areas with marginal VFR right along the coastline, IFR right on its heels, and that'll extend up into the coast range here. Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai Peninsula, and again along the Alaska Range, marginal VFR. North side, VFR. Brooks Range, marginal in areas, especially the central areas, and improving there in the Arctic coast. Now marginal VFR, Barrow to Point Lay, and some just a little bit of IFR here. Not too bad actually out over the Bering Sea. Widespread marginal conditions, but the IFR really fading back. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR, shifting up to, or becoming VFR to start the day, with becoming marginal as a band of moisture lifts north and northwest. That same forecast are adding as well. VFR becomes marginal in the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR tomorrow, and for rainy, marginal at times also. Windy looks marginal, and Isabel, occasional marginal VFR. Mentasta, though, VFR, chance of marginal VFR mainly on the southern entrance. And for Tanita, VFR. And Portage, marginal VFR, IFR hanging on the eastern entrance. And Chilkoot and White, IFR, looks like for the next couple of days. And for the freezing levels here, 2,000 feet, right along the crest of the Brooks Range on out with the surface there, so still kind of chilly up there. For tomorrow morning, 6,000 feet here all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, not too bad, 6,000 to 10,000 feet along the North Gulf Coast here with 12,000 feet down across the Queen Charlotte's. Icing, could be some moderate rime icing here above about 10,000 feet, so it's going to be up there a ways there for the North Gulf Coast, so that moisture pushing northeastward. Next batch down here to the southwest, that'll be slipping on up Sunday night into Monday. Otherwise, above about 6,000 feet here, areas of light to isolated moderate rime icing, southwest coast here all the way up across the eastern Brooks Range. Jet stream, upper level low here, kind of a trough connecting here from the wind in the Arctic to this one. And winds coming down around that aren't all that strong at this elevation, just 50 to 60 knots. Stronger jet here down to the south, westerlies 140. Takes a turn to the north as it approaches that northeast Pacific ridge. Southerly winds again, moisture and clouds, rain, taking more southwesterly flow at 80 knots there. Ridging, trying to work into the panhandle actually here aloft with northerly jet there to the east. And for 3,000 feet, 20 to 30 knots, though, from the south into the panhandle, 15 to 30 along the North Gulf Coast, up to 40 knots across the Copper River Basin, and 3,000 feet about the same turbulence, occasional moderate chop, southwest interior, Alaska Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, and the Copper River Basin.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the Limmendisk Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. GOLD connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space, around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time, compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis. That strip of ice is gone now that was right in this area yesterday and the last several days or week or so. Anyway, that's about the only change. A little bit filling in here, it looks like, of the thinner ice. And that might continue for another couple of days of just slow southward movement here due to some northerly winds. And that's about all that's expected for any changes. So no big changes here for the foreseeable future. And for the winds on the coast, pretty light down here in the south, northwest 10 there, Prince of Wales Island off the coast. Then from Mount Edgecombe, or Port Alexander there in the central coast, southwest 15, turning south 20 around just west Elfin Cove, southeast 20, turning east 20 along the eastern Gulf Coast. Lynn Canal, south 20 tomorrow, south 15 Stevens Passage, northwest 15 Clarence Strait. And no change for Monday. Same wind pattern here, speed-wise as well, 3 to 4 foot sea, south 20 for Lynn Canal, west-southwest 10 to 15 down on the south coast, and then again south winds 20 knots, turning southeast up on the extreme north coast. Prince William Sound tomorrow, light southeast winds at 10 knots, seas just 2 feet, same thing here for Cook Inlet, very slight seas. Southeast 20 though, south of the Forelands, 5 foot sea, small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay, and the Barrens, east-southeast of 25. And 20 knot winds here for the western North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories, 25 knot winds to the east, and actually small crafts all along the North Gulf Coast. And light for the next day, big increase in those. You lose the light winds, go to 35 knots out of the south of Prince William Sound, seas up to 9 feet, building to 9 feet. Good gales here, minimum gales along the North Gulf Coast, seas up to 15 feet, 30 knot winds here into the Barren Islands, turning easterly again. Kamishak Bay at 30 knots, and northeast 25, all of Cook Inlet Monday with 8 to 10 foot seas, quite an increase. And for Kodiak Island, southeast 15 knots, seas 4 feet in Shelikof Strait to 11 feet on the east side. And we've got some southerlies at 20 knots that pick up to 25 knots from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachef there, seas building to 13 feet. North side, south 20, southeast 20 for Bristol Bay. And then northwest 15, coming down a little bit there for Bristol Bay, seas down to 2 feet. Southwest 15, Bering Sea side of the peninsula. South side, southwest 20, 10 foot seas. 25 knot winds here. Castle Cape to Sitkinak and up the east side of Kodiak, turning southerly, east 20 for Shelikof Strait. Western Aleutians, not bad windwise anywhere in the Aleutians tomorrow. 15 to 20 knots out of the north there in the west. Adak Atka, north 20. North to northwest, turning west-northwest, and diminishing to 15 to 20 for Unalaska Island. And then for Monday, westerlies, west-northwest, here, 20 knots, 7-foot seas. That pattern all the way out to Adak and Atka, and actually extending, say, on out to Amchitka Island here, then down to west at 15 with 5-foot seas. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, easterlies at 20, northerlies 25 for the Pribilofs, and that goes all the way up to St. Lawrence Island and the north side of Nunivak Island. Those seas running 7 to 9 feet. Outlook for Monday, light northeasterlies here along the southwest coast, 10 to 15 knots, seas coming down 2 to 5 feet, northwest 20 with 6-foot seas for the Pribilofs. Make it north for St. Matthew Island, and north also at 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And for the Arctic coast, central coast to demarcation point, west at 10 tomorrow, west side northeast 10, picking up to 20 knots here from Cape Beaufort, and then turning northerly across the Chukchi Sea to the Bering Strait. And not much change on in those areas on Monday here from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, north becoming northeast at 20 knots, northeast 15 on the west coast, really light variable winds here for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight again, that front washing out, weakening as it moves into the panhandle. It could spread some light rain into the central areas and then increase the clouds down to the south. And light rain at times along the North Gulf Coast or showers along the Alaska Range, light rain or showers Alaska Peninsula, a more extensive area of rain here with this trough. That's a narrow band up there as it approaches, crosses the upper Yukon Valley. And then for tomorrow, that brings some rain back to the northwest, unsettled southern Alaska. And the next front developing here, the warm front actually develops into a front and swings up, more possible heavy rain in the North Gulf Coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.